I understand that our speaker this morning is not a stranger to some of you. I would be very interested in knowing how many of you ended up being a Pathfinder when Ben Wolfswinkel, am I saying that correctly, Ben? When Ben Wolfswinkel was your leader. Heather? Anyone else? Okay. Denny, you were a Pathfinder then?
He's the leader.
You remember it, but you were a leader. But Heather was a Pathfinder. So Ben, that speaks to the fact that you've been doing this a long, long time.
Too long.
And he told me, Heather, I know how old you are. This is our daughter. You've been doing it a while. My dad got admitted to the hospital on his 95th birthday. And when we went into the hospital, the nurse who was the charge nurse was convincing the younger ones that she had worked with him when she was a brand new nurse. They said, that's impossible. It was 35 years ago he retired. She said, and? Yes. So we are delighted to have Ben here today. Ben tells me that he's retired 3 times from being a Pathfinder leader. And it was at Oshkosh when he went to the Pathfinder Camporee that a vision was shared with him by someone there that said, if you once were a Pathfinder leader, you are always a Pathfinder leader. You are never retired. So at this point, he just considers he is a Pathfinder. He is a leader of Pathfinders. And I cannot think of a more wonderful thing to listen to today because I am still a kid at heart.
There you go.
And we appreciate you being here, Ben.
Thank you. The more I get around and I see Pathfinders that come up to me and say, do you remember me? And I've got to go, maybe. And then they bring up, well, remember this camporee, remember that camporee, and this and that. And it comes back eventually. About 10 years ago, I had a quartet that we traveled all over the state of Washington and some into Oregon. And my second tenor asked me after one concert, he says, is there any place we can go that nobody knows you? And I said, probably not. Because no matter where I went, I was running into former Pathfinders. Not so much maybe that they were in our district, but as a district coordinator, conference events, they knew who I was. But it's a great way to belong, and it lets you understand that the church is not just this church. We are a worldwide church. And yeah, I went back to Oshkosh one year. My daughter convinced me to go back with her and talked to the guy who was from the General Conference, not just the North American Division, but the General Conference. And she told him that I wasn't active right now, but that I had been a coordinator and so forth. And I told him, I said, I've retired from Pathfinders. And he looked me straight in the eye and he says, you never retire from Pathfinders. Once a Pathfinder, always a Pathfinder. Anywho, this morning, I know the bulletin says we're going to talk about Jonah, but I couldn't quite get it to gel the way I wanted it. So we're going to hold that off for a month. What I'd like you to do is take your Bibles and open up to Matthew chapter 24, and we're going to start with verse, where I can read it, verse 36. And it says, no one knows about the day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came. As I read that, I looked back at some of my notes on some of my other stories that I've given, and I decided that this one would probably fit better. We skip down now to chapter 25 and begin with verse 14. The parable of the talents. Here we find that God is telling a story that most of the people didn't understand. And as I've studied through it, he basically said nobody will understand it until I come back to earth. But anyway, it says that the master decided he was going to go on a journey, and he gave his servants charge over his belongings. To one he gave 5 talents, to one 2, and to one 1. And as you read through there, you can see what they do. But I found a story a few years ago that fits into this, that brings it closer to home. It's a story about a rich man in Europe by the name of Mr. Jones. He was considered to be the richest man on earth at that time. And his doctors kept trying to convince him he was working too hard, he needed to take a break, and that his financial affairs would be fine. He could go and come back when he felt better. So he finally decided to go, and he stopped, called his boys in, and he said, boys, come here, I've got to talk to you. I want to tell you something. I've decided that I need to take a trip. Well, where are you going, Dad? I'm not sure. But I just got to get away. Okay. But he says, I want you guys to carry on. You're doing fine. And I have a gift for each of you. Tom, you're my oldest. I've watched you grow up. I know what you can do and can't do. And I want you to have my chemistry lab that's in the basement. All my notes are there. You have it. Have fun with it. Oh, and by the way, here's a check for $5 million. Do what you can with it. By this time, Jack was getting a little excited, wondering what does Dad have for me. His dad told him, Jack, I've watched you as you've been looking at the old Rolls Royce that's sitting out in the garage. I've seen you drool over it. That car is now yours. Do with it what you want. Oh, and by the way, here's a check for $2.5 million. Wow. Can I go see my car? Sure, Jack, go ahead. Well, by this time, Richard's getting a little nervous, wondering what in the world's going to happen. Dad says, Richard, you're my youngest. But I maybe have the best gift for you. But you'll have to decide. And he handed him a box. In that box were notebooks, diaries of every experiment, everything that he had done through his lifetime up to that point to become a success. I want you to have this. Remember, it's mine. Take good care of it. Oh, and here's a check for $1 million. He said his goodbyes. The butler picked up his things, put him in the car, and drove him to the airport, and off he went. The boys stood there looking at each other, wondering what to do. Tom immediately went down to the chemistry lab, checked everything out, found many experiments that were not complete, and began to study, and it developed his interest more than he actually had. Went on to college, got a degree in chemistry. That wasn't enough. He went back, got a degree in engineering, and began to put things together that started to make him money and build up quite an empire. Jack, with his car, went out and worked on it, got it back to its original state. Got a call from the accountant that they worked with, and he says, Jack, I need you to come to my office. I'm concerned about some of the things that you've invested in. He says, there's word that Rolls-Royce is going to be shutting down, and you've got way too much money in that company. We need to pull that money out and put it to work someplace else. And Jack said, fine, let's do that. And he began to buy up different warehouses of parts for Rolls-Royce. All over the country, he was buying the parts up. People figured, why not? Nobody needs them. And then he put little ads in certain papers that he would restore Rolls-Royces. And pretty soon he had more cars to fix than he knew what to do with. But he kept working at it, and he hired more people, and he kept working, kept going. Richard looked at the box. This is Dad's. I can't destroy it. I've got to leave it the way he left it, because he's ruthless. If I damage any of that, I'm in trouble. And he put the check in with the box and buried it in his closet. We don't know how much time there was that went on. The story didn't say. But one day, the butler, of course, every day since Mr. Jones had left, would jump in the car, go to the airport, and wait. He didn't know whether he was coming or not, but he was going to be there when he got there. Day after day, for years, faithfully he went to wait and watch. On one day, he noticed things were different. There was a private jet coming in. There hadn't been a private jet fly in for years. And he waited. And sure enough, it was Mr. Jones. He rushed out to meet him. How are you, Mr. Jones? Good to see you back. Where do you want to go? I'm here to take you. Well, how did you know I was coming? Oh, I've been here every day. You have? Every day you've come to watch for me? Yes. Why did you do that? Because I knew you were coming back, but I didn't know when. And I was going to be ready. So he came back. They went, he gathered his things, put them in the car. He said, where do you want to go? He said, I want to go to the business owned and operated by Tom Jones. All right, sir, let's go. And off they went into town, pulled up in front of a high-rise building. Mr. Jones looked at it and goes, wow. You sure this is Tom's? Oh, yes, sir. And they went in this fancy big office building. People everywhere busy working. And walked into the elevator, and the butler pushed a button that Dad didn't even know there was a floor for, as it went clear to the top. When the door opened, it opened into a large office area, plush carpeting, desks that were fancy, the best wood you could buy, a beautiful office setting, and he noticed a man sitting behind the desk with his back to him because he was picking up shuffling papers. Tom heard the elevator door open, and he quickly turned around. Dad! And off he went as he jumped over the desk. What a greeting! And when they finally settled down a little bit on it, Dad says, Tom, so this is all yours? Oh, yes, Dad. Yeah, this is nothing. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Well, what have you been doing? Well, first thing I did, Dad, is I went, of course, and went down and looked at that chemistry lab you had, cataloged everything. You know, some of those experiments you're doing, they're pretty elementary. Dad says, well, you got to start someplace. He says, well, let's don't talk here. Let's go down. Let me show you. Got back in the elevator, went clear down, and Dad was sure that it was about like sub 3 as they kept going and kept going. Opened up, and here's this large chemistry lab that looked just like he had left his years before. And he said, but what have you done with all of this? He says, well, I cataloged it so I could get it exactly right so that it looked just like you left it, because I wanted you to know that I took care of it. But since then, I've gone through every one of your experiments, and you just didn't go far enough on some of them. And because of being in school and learning other new techniques, I perfected some of that. Well, that's great. So, what are some of your accomplishments? Well, Al, it's cold and damp down here. Let's go back up to the office and we can sit in the comfortable chairs and we'll talk. Went back to the office and he sat down with him, and you could see out, because the windows, you could see everywhere. You could walk up to the window, you could look straight down because it was glass and see the street below. He says, you'll notice that the air is clear. Yeah, I noticed that. What is that? Well, one of the patents that we have, we developed a way to where we could cut the emissions from the cars and some of the factory emissions so that it cleaned up the air. So anytime you see something like that, I hold the patent to it. Wow. So what are you worth? I don't know. You'll have to talk to the accountants. It's way more than I can count, let's put it that way, Dad. So you invested the money, not only in your education, but you invested it in this type of thing, and you're helping the world? Yes, Dad. Wow. Well, Dad, it's getting late. I need to get home. Come with me. Let's go home. I'll meet my family. So Dad went home with him and met the wife and the kids. They had heard of Grandpa, but they'd never seen him. And so that evening, they had a great rejoicing time together, learned what had been going on through the years that he had been gone. After they had eaten supper, Tom says, I suppose you want to go see Jack tomorrow? Yeah. Okay, Dad, I can take you there. No. Call me a cab tomorrow morning and I'll go see Jack. All right. The next day, Dad got up, got dressed, got ready to go. And Tom says, you sure you don't want me to take you there? No. Just call me a cab. Cab showed up and says, where would you like to go? I want to go to the business owned and operated by Jack Jones. Cabbie scratched his head. Jack Jones. I know a musician by the name of Jack Jones. No, that's not him. Oh, that Jack Jones. Yeah, I know where his shop's at. And he took him through town, through the best part of town, and then kind of into the shadows a little bit, to an area where there was a lot of old brick buildings. Pulled up in front of one. It looked kind of shabby on the outside. And Dad goes, okay. But there was a sign. Jack Jones Automotive. He says, yep, this is it. Dad got out, grabbed his briefcase, walked in, heard noises around, but he didn't see anybody, and he looked down, and here's a pair of legs coming out from under a car. So he walked over and he kicked one. And the guy goes, jumped, and he, ouch! And he crawled back out. Dad! And Dad's $1,000 suit just got grease all over it. But the hug was still the same. What are you doing here, Dad? It's good to see you. Yes. What are you doing, Jack? What's with all of this stuff? Well, you know, the old Rolls Royce, it needed work. Yeah, I know it did. But I figured you could fix it. He said, so I got it all fixed up, and it was nice and shiny and everything else. And then the accountant gave me the word that they weren't going to make parts for these things anymore. And he was worried that I was going to start losing money if I didn't change what I was doing. So we sold off some of the stocks and we bought all of the inventory we could get for Rolls-Royce. He says, I'm the only one in the country right now that repairs these, and I can't keep up with them. There are more people with the Rolls-Royce that don't know how to fix them, or somebody's tried to fix them and made a mess out of it, and we have to fix it. And so that's what I'm doing, Dad. Oh, here, let me show you something. They went over to the wall, hit a button, and the wall slid by. In there stood the old Rolls-Royce. Wow, Dad goes, what have you done to it? Well, first I got it running better, and we knocked all the dents out. We painted it up. It's got 12 coats of varnish on it, hand wiped. And it just sits there. Oh, no, it goes to car shows, but it doesn't go on the road too much anymore. It's too valuable. So we load it up in a truck, and we take it to car shows to show people what it can do and how theirs can look. And we keep getting more and more business. I've got 3 shops now, one here and in 2 different places around the country. So what are you worth? Oh, I don't know. That's up to Tom. I let his guys take care of that. I just want to fix cars. About that time, the phone rang. Dad goes, excuse me just a minute, Dad, I'll be right back with you. He went in to answer the phone, and Dad wandered around, and he looked around, and he says, wait a minute, isn't that a 57 Chevy sitting over there? He said he only worked on the Rolls Royces. I wonder what that's for. He came back out, and Dad goes, Jack, what's that car doing here if you work on nothing but Rolls Royce? Oh, that, yes, Dad. Well, you know, Tom, how persuasive he is. Yeah, he can be pretty persuasive. Well, they asked him to be the Pathfinder director. And he had some kids that were kind of rowdy and liked to mess around with people's cars. And I thought maybe, just maybe, if you'd come in and work with them a little bit, they'd quit messing with people's cars and learn how to fix them. And one of the guys in church was getting ready to retire, and he bought this car brand new, and he didn't want to sell it. He didn't want to get rid of it, but he wanted it fixed. So he told me, if you'll do it, Jack, I'll see to it you got all the money you need to fix that car if you let the Pathfinders help you. That's what they did. So you're now working with Pathfinders? Well, no, I just teach them how to fix cars. Tom's the teacher, not me. Getting close to the end of the day, Jack says, come on, Dad, you got to go home with me. You got to meet my family. So again, he goes home, meets the family, more grandkids, tells them stories of where he's been, what he's done, and had an enjoyable time. Next day, Jack says, you're going to go see Richard? Yeah, I'll go see him today. Call me a cab. You sure? Yeah, I'll find where he's at. I know he's a success someplace. He has to be. You boys have done so good. And Jack went over and got a scrap of paper, and he scribbled down an address, and he handed Dad. He says, here, put this in your pocket. It might help you find him. Cab showed up, and wanted to know, Mr. Jones, where do you want to go? And he goes, well, I want to go to the business owned and operated by Richard Jones. Again, the cabbie scratched his head. He says, I don't know anybody that way. I've never heard of a Richard Jones company of any kind. and I've been here years. Dad remembered the piece of paper, and he pulled it out of his pocket, and he looked at it, and he said, well, let's try this address. Okay. Off they went. They came to it looked like a department store, several floors. Dad looked at it and go, well, okay, this isn't too bad. He's doing fine. Walked in, and the secretary at the reception desk asked what he wanted. He says, I want to speak to Richard Jones. Richard Jones. And she looked through her files. There was nobody in upper management by that name. Asked around a little bit. Anybody know a Richard Jones who works here? Somebody piped up and he says, I think he works in accounting. Oh, okay. So she got up and took Dad to the accounting department. Back in the far corner was a young man sitting there, hunched over his desk, going through paperwork. And then they walked in. The person wanted to know, well, who do you want? Oh, Richard Jones. Oh, yeah, he's the one in the far back corner back there in that little cubicle. That's where he's working. Dad walked in and actually he stumbled over the file cabinet as he was trying to get in the narrow little walkway to get in there. Richard was busy working on something, and Richard looked up and goes, Dad, what are you doing here? The hug was the same as with the other boys, but Richard felt a deep hole in his stomach. He knew what his brothers had done. And here he was, just a lonely cashier accountant in a large company. They talked for a little bit. Dad asked him, do you have a family? No, I tried marriage. That didn't work. So I'm kind of on my own. I've got this little job that keeps me going. But that's about it, Dad. Oh, what happened to the books I gave you? Oh, now there I'm a success on, because I've got those. They're right down here. And he pulled out from the Army surplus filing cabinet, metal that hardly worked, yanked the drawer out and pulled the box out and set it on the desk. Dad looked at him and said, Richard, have you looked at this? Oh, no, sir. They're yours. I didn't want to mess them up. Dad opened up a couple of different books and opened them and showed him, read some of the things in there, pulled out some of the money that was stuffed in each one, and said, Richard, why didn't you open the books? They're yours. I didn't want to mess them up. He pulled out a diary, and he says, Richard, open it. Richard opened it. There was a sheet in there that had been glued in beforehand, ahead. Later, somewhere along the line, it wasn't bound in there, but it was stuck in there. With a note on it read, here is the formula that I've come up with to where with the certain sands in the Palm Desert area, we can get platinum. Richard looked at that and he says, what would that have done? Richard, you would have been the richest man in the world. But you had to open the book. Richard hung his head, didn't know what to do. Dad closed it back up. He said, oh, by the way, what did you do with the $1 million? Oh, that's in the bottom of the box, Dad. I saved it for you. It's there. Richard, why didn't you at least put it in the bank? It would have drawn interest. You wouldn't have to be doing this little job you're doing. You had it in your hands. Dad put everything back in the box, closed the box, locked the box with the latches. To Richard it felt like loud claps of thunder as it locked. He picked up the box, turned around and said, "Richard, because of what you've done with what I gave you, you are no longer my son." Turned and walked out. Went back to Tom's and continued his visit before he left again. And he told the boys, "I'm going. I will be back. But I bought an island. I'm going to go back there for a while, but I'll be back later." As we look at this story, and as we read what Matthew wrote about the talents, it's not about money, really. It's about what we can do to shine to others. Through my years of pathfinding, and as I meet up with pathfinders now, I didn't think I was doing anything great. I still don't. But God was doing things through me in the lives of the young people. We have all got talents. It's what we do with them that makes it worthwhile. She says that I've retired more than at least 3 times. When I closed my printing business down because somebody invented the computer copy machines that will do 4-color, all of a sudden all my work that I've been doing for years, nobody needed. They had it right there. So I retired. Couldn't stand it. Went back to work. Drove cars for about 12 years, leased vehicles for different corporations. They'd have a salesman in California that needed a car. They had one sitting in Seattle doing nothing. I'd go pick it up and take it back and forth, sometimes 5,000 miles a week, which is not easy. But I did that not because I had to really, but, well, I did because I needed the money. But it gave me something to do. And I would pick up cars from people who were hurting. Pick up a car from a salesman that had worked for a company for 30 years. They decided that they were going to split his territory and gave it to 2 younger people because they thought he wasn't useful anymore. People who were hurting, and we'd stand and talk about it. Before I'd leave and before they'd give me the keys, they're going, "I'm sure glad you came and not somebody who's just ready to, here, give me the keys, I'm out of here." I says, "Then I'm interested in what you're doing. How's this impacting you?" And I thought nothing of it, but through the years, people have told me, "No, that's where God put you, so you could make them feel better about losing their job, but the one guy, he actually, before we finished talking, he says, "I probably should tell you, I really wanted to keep the car because my competitor that I've been competing with for years found out that my company had let me go. They called me and said, would I like a job with them doing the same thing?" I says, "You took it, of course, didn't you?" He says, "You bet I did." And he says, "They said they'd find me a car, and I figured they'd probably bring the one you're taking back to me. But I says, no, you'll probably get a new one, because this one they told me I have to take into Portland to the auction, and they're going to get rid of it." Time after time, stories of people like that as I went around the country. Finally, it got too much. I had to retire again. The last run I did, these fancy cars are not that great. I picked up a fancy car in Sacramento. Got as far as, about halfway up the road, highway ways. Spent the night, car wouldn't start the next morning. Dead battery. Now, a lot of your new cars, you guys may probably find out by now, but if they sit for 3 months, usually the battery goes dead. You can jump it and get it to running, but then it tells the computer there's a problem because I've been dead for a while. And the computer recalculates and shuts everything off. Now the only thing you can do is get it into the shop, where they spend 2 hours to try to figure out what it is, even though you know it's a battery. They put a new battery on it. It takes 2 more hours to reprogram it so it'll run. Memorial weekend on a Friday. I'm supposed to be home for the weekend, and I would have been. It was early enough. I waited 3 hours for a tow truck. The tow truck finally got me to Chico, the only place that said they could get it. We got there at 4 o'clock. Everybody's getting ready to go home for the long weekend. They said, well, we can put a battery in, but then that voids the guarantee, or you can come back Tuesday morning and get it. I'm supposed to be back in Portland. So I called the office, and they told me, well, get on the bus or a train, whatever you can get out of there with, and put it on your charge account, and we'll take care of you. And we've got a car in Portland that needs to come down the next week. So I got a bus ticket Saturday night, came in at 11 o'clock, got on the bus, not thinking of it or anything, get to Portland, had a funeral to go to on Sunday. Monday morning, I'm in the hospital. I got COVID from the bus. That was the worst bus ride I ever had. We had 2 guys on that were coming down off of drugs that were headed to Idaho for drug rehab. About 3 other people that were coughing their brains out, and I knew we were in trouble. And went in the emergency room. They checked me over and everything, and didn't say a word. There I'm sitting. Doctor came in, did some work on the computer, fixed some things. I said, so what are we doing? She says, well, you have COVID. I said, okay, now what? She says, I don't know, and walked out the door. Now what do you do? Here I sit. 3 hours later, a young nurse come in, and he says, okay, you can get dressed, you're going home. I said, so, but what am I, if they say I've got COVID, what do I do? He says, I don't know, they just told me to come in and get you ready to check out. I get home, and my middle daughter was not satisfied with the answer. Luckily, she called my doctor, got a hold of the nurse, told her what happened, and the nurse goes, they didn't tell him, because they checked the chart. Nowadays with the computer, no matter where you're at, you're on a chart someplace, and your doctor gets it. She says, well, I'm looking here, and they said that you can get this 4 booster shot thing that they have. He qualifies for it. They didn't tell him he could get it. She says, nope, didn't say a word. She says, well, how fast can you get him to the hospital to get that? She says, when do you need him there? She says, I'll call you right back in about 10 minutes. I'll get it set up. 10 minutes later, I'm on my way to Good Sam in Portland to get the 4 booster shots, sicker than a dog for 3 weeks. I don't know which was worse, the shots they gave me or COVID, but we lived through it. Couldn't talk very good for a little while, and I told the Lord, if you need me to do anything, just help me out here, get me through this. And we're still going. The worst of it is my wife wound up getting it, had a little bit barely creeping in with dementia, and this just flourished it, and now it's full blown. But God still needs us wherever we are, whatever we do. So I retired from driving Now I'm sitting at home with nothing to do. My daughters, the two that are living at home now, they couldn't afford an apartment, so they said, Dad, why don't we just move in with you and help with the payment? That sounds good to me, and you guys can cook. I don't have to, because Mom can't do it anymore. And so I decided that I had to do something, so I decided I'd go buy groceries for people with Instacart. And everybody thought I was crazy. Some of them still think that, but you know. So now we're doing Instacart, and I find I'm doing it, to be honest with you, not because of the money, although that's nice, but I can help people. I love it when I get a run that goes to an old couple. Now, as my daughter says, Dad, they're probably younger than you are. 90% of them are. But they're surprising how many people in our communities can't get out to get their groceries. They can't walk that much, or they just something to keep them back. So many of them can't even get the groceries picked up off the step of their porch. They have to have it taken in and put on their counter. And I've got a lot of them. I've been doing it now for 4 years. A lot of these people, when they see my name pop up, that I picked up their order. One lady said the other day, she says, I rejoice when I see your name, because I know you're going to get the best you can find for me. I know that when it gets here, it's not going to be just set on the porch and you run, like 90% of the other drivers do. If I need it inside, you'll bring it to me. And it's exciting to talk to these people. And some of them I've talked with, and they go, especially with the ladies, because I was taught no matter what age you think they are, they're still younger. So I call them all young ladies. And the one lady the other day, she says, why did you call me a young lady? I says, because you are. Well, I bet I'm older than you are. And I says, well, when were you born? She says, I was born in 48. I said, oh, okay, I'm older. No, you're not. And so I showed her my driver's license. And she goes, oh, okay, you are. Because I was born in 43. I'm still kicking, still running. But it's not because of me. It's because of God. Take that home and mull it around a little bit. Because no matter what we do, I've had people tell me, I can't do anything. I can't do what you're doing. I didn't say you had to. But you can give a friendly smile to somebody. One other little quick story that, and I won't give the guys' names, even though I went to school with them. But back in the days of the hippies, and if you walked into church and you looked like a hippie, what did people do? Ooh, you're not welcome here. Two young boys, brothers, went to a church, a little church out in North Dakota, and long hair, hippie clothes, walked in, and the lady at the door, the little old grandma, she welcomed them in, and they thought they were tough stuff. She didn't get their names. She just thought they were a couple of nice-looking young boys, even though they looked a little rough. Befriended them and took them home for dinner because they were traveling through. Those two boys later, because of that, even though they had been raised in the church, decided that, she was kind to us. She didn't have to be. Maybe we ought to study into the church a little more. Both became pastors. And all because one person was friendly when they walked in the door. If we can open our doors like that as a church, not only local, but worldwide, and we're doing that, more people look at our lives than our message. So may God bless you through this week.
You enjoyed the group up here today? You realize this group shouldn't really be getting together. There's two of them that are way too old, and one's too young, and the other one, let's say, so crippled they had to leave. But it's been a joy to sing with you all together coming in today. If any of you ever sort of wanted to just join in a group like this, I would love, every time I get to lead music, to have a choir type group. My goal would be about 15, and some of you who play trumpet or trombone or guitar, that's this kind of thing. Wouldn't that be fun? So if you have any interest at all, would you please tell me? And right now, we get to go from this place into that place and spread the word of our Lord, and the mountains and the hills will break forth before you, just like those trees that can clap your hands. Would you stand? You shall go out
with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy. All the trees of the fields will clap their hands. And all the trees of the fields will clap their hands. The trees of the fields will clap their hands. The trees of the fields will clap their hands as we go out with joy.
The duty is, and you do it this time, you sure you get the clapping part? Would you guys do the shouting joy with your hands in that part? You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. Mountains and the hills will
break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy.
all the trees of the field
will clap their hands.
The trees of the
Fields will clap their hands.
The trees of
The fields will clap their hands.
the trees of
The fields will clap their hands as we go out with joy.
as we go out with joy.
Loving Heavenly Father, we pause again before we leave this place. Thankful that we've been able to come and worship with you in your house. Guide us, protect us as we go to our homes. Be with us throughout this week. Help us to be mindful that we're just a tool in your hand. And if we can help anyone to look at you through us, then our week is worth it. Bless us now, we pray. In your name.